Hey all. So, 8th war of the season. This is Reed against Longshot on this Conflictor power efficiency node. Very popular placement. Fairly tricky fight, but the thing is, because when Longshot throws a special, Reed tries to place that Careful Study debuff on him, that triggers Conflictor, and that allows us to put it on cooldown safely, even while we're using the House of X guidance pre-fight, so that we can safely throw our special too and get those debuffs up and be in control. Now, some of you all saw me take this a couple of wars ago where I ran into a rather unfortunate interaction, which is that if the third Careful Study debuff triggers, which is when Reed turns it into a passive, it will turn into a passive, but Conflictor will still try to purify some other debuff. So I actually lost my Petrify, even though it was already up last time. Knowing that's how it worked, this go around, I instead just tried not to stack the Careful Study debuffs, and so allowed him to throw special ones and special twos so that they would remove each other, and so that we never ran into that problem. That allowed me to keep more control of the fight. I never lost my first Petrify. As you can see, I'm able to get a second one up, and Conflictor just stops being a problem. We hit much harder, much easier than last time. So that is how I would do that with Reed. You could potentially do this without the House of X pre-fight, but it's a little tricky to re-parry with Reed just with how his evade works, and so you could get backed up if you're less than perfect. But anyway, doing that with Reed instead of Captain America makes this I-Bomb here very simple because we can bring Nimrod without any complications. He's poison immune, and it's a rank 4 Nimrod. Like, there's not a whole lot here. We're just doing parry medium, because it is Vivified. We're trying not to give him too much power because we do want him to throw that special one there. In a perfect world, we would have thrown our own special one so that we got both benefits out of it and got that chunky energy vulnerability up on I-Bomb. And honestly, if we had done that, then the first special 2 probably would have killed him. So that would have been nice. We don't need to stress about it. We take a little bit of brute force there. We're still comfortably above 90%. And I would love for him to throw a special here, but it doesn't look like he's going to, and so I'm just like, you know what, we're in Eradicate, this is going to be enough. And it is. Because I-Bomb is a fairly tanky champion, but a good amount of his tankiness is physical resistance, and Nimrod just doesn't care about that. So moving on to Peni Parker, it's only a rank 3 this time. You've seen me take this many times. Basically, as long as you have the guidance pre-fight, Reed is just really, really good for this, Defiance or not. Because the important thing is making sure that she can't purify your stun debuffs by making sure they're not debuffs. That allows you to stay in control of this fight. Burn her blue Spider Sense charges so that she doesn't auto-block the rest of your kit. And basically just safely hit into her. With Reed in particular, it's very important that we can safely land our heavies so that we keep our debuffs up. And that just keeps us ramped, keeps everything else in control. And against Peni in particular, that's nice because the suppressions are going to allow us to avoid too many of her special ones. Which is nice because even though we're helping to get around her auto block, it's not perfect. As you saw with that last special too, there is a certain amount of RNG there. We did get power burned once. That's just going to happen. But it happens less because of Reed. And so that's just one reason why I really like him over other Defiance characters or over Spider-Man 2099 here. We're hitting plenty hard now. We're fully reducing willpower, fully reversing willpower. Maybe not fully, but that's quite a bit of damage there. And then she throws this. Again, we do not counter her special one because she can auto-block that, even heavies. We back up, we just wait for those parries. Notice how that triggered an auto block and did burn 4 of her charges, even though it didn't actually succeed at auto blocking. And that's really why the House of X pre-fight is so good here. Actually did trigger an auto block there. That kind of surprised me. I thought that I was going to get one more hit in and end the fight. Oh well. Willpower reversal took care of it, on to Mordo. So my favorite counter to this Mordo is Killmonger. Between his True Strike and his indestructible charges, he's just kind of the simplest option to this for me. He doesn't have to worry about Mystic Dispersion thanks to Defiance, and he doesn't need the House of X pre-fight the way that a lot of other good counters do. But he obviously didn't fit on this team. I didn't see anyone else bringing him, and so I was like, you know what? I can spare the one House of X pre-fight. Let's go ahead and just use Reed here. So the basic game plan is going to be similar to other attackers on this node. We're going to always try to stick to medium light for all of our combos, even into his block. That's the crucial mistake that a lot of people make on this node. It's just doing a medium into the block. Then the defender will throw a special one, you'll try to punish it with a medium, and oops, you get evaded. So the House of X pre-fight does make these passive stuns long enough that we can get away with medium heavy for the most part, but I'm just trying not to get in that mindset because it is something that if I'm a little bit slow, I can get wrecked for it, and so I'd rather just not. So medium light there again. We could have thrown a heavy into his block there, and I think I do later, but I just wasn't quite feeling it. I had, I don't know, a sneaking suspicion he was going to throw a special into my face if I did that time. And so I just didn't, because Reed's debuffs are long enough. Thank you, Kabam, for buffing him so that that's true. And he just has control over this fight. Even with only one Petrify up, he's already significantly reduced the threat that Mordo represents. A lot of red numbers there from the reversal of willpower and the shock while it's up. And see, there he goes. He tries to hit into me when I evade. Thankfully, we're ramped enough that Reed evades himself, and the fight is over. So moving right on to the next one, we have Stryfe on this EMP mod mini-boss. I think I was counting energy and just accepted that I wouldn't get there. But Stryfe over here, it's a decent placement. He has block penetration that is enhanced by the Aspect of Evolution node. It can get annoying, but this node, like Power Snack, is just not that dangerous if you place anyone on it that can be taken with a Defiance character. Stryfe does fit that bill, and so basically as long as we don't try and punish his special one, we're good to go. We do have to pay attention to Bubble Shield because Stryfe has, I guess it's not true accuracy, but his mediums cannot be evaded. We can't rely on that to save us if he hits in, as we just saw there. But hopefully we'll just stay on top of it enough that that's not going to be an issue. We go ahead and throw our special 2 here. We're getting ramped. This is why I really like Reed here over some other Defiance options, because Defiance in general saves you from EMP mod and Burden of Might, but Aspect of Evolution is still a pain for a lot of characters. I did take Apocalypse here earlier with Captain America, and it was not particularly fun, and that was a major reason why. So having that suppression, especially once you start stacking it, to just limit how many times the opponent crosses a bar of power, to keep their combat power rate down, their attack down, their block penetration down, all of those are very helpful. So you'll notice right there, I did get smacked when Bubble Shield went down. I tried to avoid it. Clearly I was late. Not enjoying that. But it's still a simple fight. Just nothing to worry about for Reed here. He keeps in control. So then moving on to Eye-Hulk here. I've taken this a couple times. I think with Massacre and with Nimrod before. Going to go ahead and use Nimrod here again. Basically the idea is that if things work out, Nimrod's shocks do not contribute to Gamma, and you can potentially keep him from going Immortal. But if he does go Immortal because you trigger his other regens enough and therefore have to do enough damage that he gets to 15 Gamma, it's not the end of the world because Nimrod does so much damage and is so tanky that you're not that likely to either die or time out. So you notice, as seems to be the case on this node, he doesn't really like to throw specials. So he finally does there, and that regen is pretty beefy, and I mess up the evade. So really testing the whole Nimrod is so tanky thing there. Don't love that. But because of that, we also weren't able to punish the special 2 quickly enough that we could have maybe gotten rid of that passive regen before it did a bit more work. If we had done that, if we had cut even a couple ticks off of it, I think we would have gotten Hulk down before he gets to 15, but we didn't. So I'm not throwing the special 2 here because I want to make sure that I save it for after he goes Immortal. We step back into it right here, it's unblockable, does plenty of damage, and we fix it. So Nimrod in general, just a really good Hulk counter, even if things do not go perfectly. And then of course we have Doom on buffet over time. Everything about this fight is in Reed's favor, which is why, thanks to this being not our most serious season, I commit the rather large sin of not healing up. Because honestly, I was just extremely confident in this one. As long as we keep that Petrify up, we don't have to worry about Doom going unblockable. He's crossing fewer bars of power, so we're probably not going to push him to a special 2. If he does get to a special, it's going to do less damage because of the Careful Study debuffs. We're never going to trigger Buffet because of the Defiance tag, but even if we did not have the Defiance tag, this would still be an extremely safe fight because we could just block the special ones because they won't go unblockable. We don't have to trigger Dexterity too often, and so he wouldn't go unblockable. Even if he healed a couple times, we'd be reversing it. Or sorry, we wouldn't be reversing it, but we would be taking it all the way down to 0. You can tell that because the Indomitable sign is up there. It's telling us, hey, you can't reverse willpower healing. That's fine. It means we still wouldn't have to worry about Buffet if that was a factor. Because it's not a factor, we can freely dex. And this is just super simple. We've already gotten up to full ramp here. We are taking some block damage because Doom is Doom, and he has block penetration in his kit for some reason. But we're really not worried. None of this is going to do a whole lot of damage. As soon as we get to this special 3, we get that huge fury from having 12 debuffs up on the opponent. It's not going to look like it does a lot of damage at any one time, because special 3s can't crit. I don't think Reed can crit against Doom in general through that 35% crit resistance, and he has a ton of armor. But those are pretty solid white numbers for Doom. He is a very, very tanky defender, and doing that much damage consistently just means the fight's not going to last that much longer, and here we go. And so then that is my war. I contributed a few pre-fights later on. I had signed up as a possibility for a few mini-bosses, but Clown just crushed them with Spider-Man 2099 anyway. Didn't need me for that. And so that was War 8. We did end up winning this one as well. That worked out really nicely. Hopefully we can win a couple more in the back half of this season, set ourselves up well for the next one. And I'll have another war vid for you tomorrow, and then I think I'm caught up. So until then, thanks so much for watching, and take care.